Welcome back to Trent and Heath. Today we have a pair of Viberg boots that we are going to do a complete overhaul on. The guy that sent these in, he actually works on the railroad, and so he said that he needed something with a little bit more defined heel when you're getting on and off an engine. You know, those steps can get kind of slick, and he needed something that can grab onto those the steps, the metal steps, a little better than what he's got. It's kind of a sloped hill on there, so we're going to completely take these off. Now, one of the things I recognized when I first picked these up was how heavy they are, and I actually had to go in there and weigh one of the boots, and one boot was over 3 pounds. So what we want to do is make the boot where it's still built solid as a rock, give him what he wants, but if we can take out a little bit of weight, I'm sure his leg muscles might enjoy it, and he's probably got like calves like this because these things are so heavy. But hey, let's get started. So here's a little profile view of it, and it's kind of interesting because there's 1, 2, 3, 4 layers on the front, 4 layers on the back, but this piece and these 2 pieces are all separate. So it's kind of a zigzag of different layers, and we want to keep the structure, but kind of simplify it at the same time. So we've got the sole off, and as you see, there's a metal plate running all the way on the bottom of the sole. My guess, I've never had a pair of boots that had a pair of metal plate like this. My guess is it's a work boot, and you don't want, like, you know, a nail or something coming up through the bottom and possibly get into your foot. If any of you guys out there have these and I'm wrong, please let me know what that's for, but I'm guessing it's just to protect something from going up to the bottom of the foot. Add a little bit more protection. The welt on this, especially up here at the toe, is pretty worn. It had several layers of stitching in it, so we're going to take this off and redo it. And you can see it's got some metal nails going all the way around. So this thing is solid, just solid as a rock. So let's get going. Okay, so we've got it all the way down to the base, shank. I couldn't tell, actually, because on top of the welt had so much kind of grime just from, you know, work, that I thought it was an actual welt, but then I could see that it was actually a stitch out. And you can actually see where they've cut the upper right here at an angle. All of this used to go in, and they just sliced it and folded it over to make a welt. So it is a stitch out. But I don't have to really worry about losing the shape because this thing is so robust in here. But we will have to be careful to keep this shape. And it only came to right here. So it was like a half welt. And then the rest of it was just an actual sole, full thickness sole. I'm trying to decide whether I want to put another full thickness down or if I want to go with a little bit thinner just to take some of that weight out. I'll decide that here in a minute. But it was just nailed down. So you can actually use that sole and stitch all the way around because it was nailed down. So it's kind of like the same thing as being stitched to here. It's got so many nails holding around, and we'll recreate that. But as you can see, steel plate up here, and it's got it's got at least 2 layers of stitching in there, so we'll pull all those out too. So yep, let's go. All right, so because this is a stitch down, we have to have this part roughly about the same shape. And since the back of it is stitched, but it's not actually stitched to the upper, it's gonna be nailed, we have to keep that same shape. So I'm gonna use the original as my template. All right, so this one has a steel shank for a work boot. I would expect nothing else. We put some glue down on this thing, but we're gonna put some tacks in here. I just like to go a little overboard, make sure that it doesn't shift. There we go. And not really a cavity because there's not really a raised rib like a regular Goodyear welt, but it does have a little bit of a indentation right here. It had a little piece of leather in there. We're gonna put a little cork in there, be a little more comfortable, and put some glue in this, and then we'll stick our sole, our first sole. All right, so we were originally going to just attach this onto the boot and then stitch this on. However, I didn't feel comfortable, this being such a used work boot, I didn't feel comfortable having one row of stitches on the bottom. So what I'm actually going to do to reinforce it is this part right here, we're going to go ahead and stitch it onto the this thick leather oak bark midsole. I can then pull this up, attach this on, tack it in the bottom like it originally was, and then once it's down, I can go back and put a second row of stitching on to really hold this, all the pieces, layers and layers together. So I'm only gonna do from here around to here. All right, so we got a lot of questions asking about the cork when we first started using that a couple of videos ago. And the short answer is there's no real big difference between sheet cork and hot cork. This is just easier. It kind of fills the cavity more so than sheet cork. There's not as much waste. We don't have to use die cutters. This is, in a way, this is kind of quicker for us, but it costs a little bit more for us. So it kind of all balances out. And, you know, so that's the reason we switched over to using this cork. Sometimes we'll still go back and use the sheet cork, just kind of depends on it. This wasn't a big cavity, so we don't need a whole lot of this. That's it. All right, so we have to put these metal plates back in, and so I just went ahead and made a template because we are going to be stitching around this, and I don't want to get too close to where my needle won't go through because I'm hitting the metal plate. So for something flat like this, we can normally put it on our clicker press, which we have one, but it's at another location. When we get into our new place, we'll actually be able to introduce you to that machine. But for right now, this is what we got here at this shop. All right, so we've put multiple layers on here. Now we're going to stick this to the main boot and get ready to stitch it 360 all the way around. But I just want to make sure that this is reactivated, and you can do that with heat. So we just use a heat gun, and I don't have to do all this. I just want it to stay in place. All right, so the back portion of this is only held in by tacks, a lot of tacks, and it will serve kind of like the welt is stitched to the rib. The back portion will be held to the upper through the tacks, and then we can actually stitch around the outside of this. So, and we get this question a lot. How does this, how do the nails not go through and stab your foot? Because they go through and they hit this and they crimp. All right, this is the second stitch. This is the one that's just actually going to hold the sole onto the welt. And this is thick. To match the heel height that was currently on there, we put a piece of leather on here, so it's kind of like a small, tiny little block. Plus, you get some good contrast. All right, so these have been well worn as they are work boots and they're supposed to be, so we're going to get them cleaned up. And then it's an old leather, so we'll go through and put some of the old conditioner. Alright guys, so that wraps up this resole and overhaul of this pair of Viberg work boots. As you can see, we did do a little transition, and this was at the request of the customer. He had kind of that all crepe swooped down at the heel sole. He wanted a more defined angled off sole, so he needed that once again to grab onto the ladders on the engine. He works on the rail, and so we gave it to him. We also just used a straight thick normal oak bark sole, and then added kind of layer by layer, so like leather, rubber, so it looks pretty cool. And yeah, we put some old conditioner on there, cleaned them up, they look good. They're going to serve them well and get them back on the line, because you know, hey, most of our stuff comes from trucks and from trains, so if you want your goods, we need guys like this that get out there and get working. One last thing, just remember that if you need to have your shoes redone, or you need some products to get your shoes looking good, all you have to do is go to potterandsons.com. We're going to put a link down below. Hit the subscribe button if you are just now joining us. Turn on the little bell so you get the reminders, and give us a thumbs up. Leave some comments. We love to read your comments. For those who normally watch our videos, you see we do like to, at least in the first several days, get down there and reply to as many comments as we can. So we enjoy interacting with y'all. Until next time, y'all have a good one.